Welcome to the YouTube version of this week's Highland League Weekly panel, where we discuss all of the weekend's action from the Breedon Highland League and the R. Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup matches that were taking place as well. Highland League Weekly over on the Press and Journal website is at least once weekly show where we show Breedon Highland League highlights or highlights from related competitions, as well as analysing all of the latest goings on. And there's also some fun features in the main show as well. To watch the main show, you have to be a subscriber to the Press and Journal, and you can sign up at the moment for the low price of just £1 for your first 3 months, which I think is quite a good deal. But no, if you prefer just chat about the results, and there were 8 games that took place across the 2 competitions on Saturday, then this is the place for you. I'm Ryan Crowell. I'm joined here by Callum, Law and Paul Third. Our main game this week was Lossiemouth 0, Nairn County 4. Callum, a pretty comprehensive win for Nairn in the end?
Pretty or totally comprehensive, I think, overall. If it was a funny game a wee bit, because Brandon Hutchison has that great chance for Lossie at 0-0, which he probably should score, and then a minute later Andrew Greggs put the ball in the top corner, and once Nairn went in front, they never really looked like relinquishing that lead. I mean, you saw like Ross Morrison, the free kick saved at the end and things, but Lossie struggled to really create much chances at all other than that one at 0-0. And then on the other side of that is Nairn with Andrew Gregg and Scott Lyle especially. I thought they were always a threat. Like, Andrew Gregg scored 2, created the 3rd. Great performance for him. Scott Lyle was playing a sort of different position to where we're probably used to seeing him. He was sort of playing in the sort of played 4-3-3 Nairn, and he was sort of playing in almost a number 10 position, and his runs from midfield towards the box caused Lossie a lot of problems, and he was linking up well with Andrew Gregg especially, and it was just, it had that sort of feeling of routine about it. But I thought Ian Campbell kind of summed it up for Lossie in terms of, like, they've had 2 good performances beating Keith last week and then getting through in the North of Scotland Cup as well, and then they've thrown in a performance on Saturday that you really couldn't have seen coming.
I suppose if there was any small moment of controversy in the game, it was the penalty that Nairn were awarded. If you think it's a controversial decision, Stuart Knight certainly in the Lossiemouth goal certainly thought it was. We can't show you the footage because it's a bit sweary, but thoughts on the call?
I think it's a penalty. I think he just clips his heel as he's going by him at the byline. I'm not quite sure what Stuart was very upset about, but he clearly was very upset. Lots of effing and jeffing going on, and feeling that there was no contact, but for me there was. It was a clip of the heel just as the players there, so penalty for me.
I would agree with that, and I would also say that it's not like it was 0-0, it was immaterial in the overall outcome. Okay, it changes goal difference, but I think on the balance it was a penalty. It's one of them where if it happens in the centre circle, it's a free kick every day of the week, so why is it any different if it happens in the box?
One final question. Grant Park on Saturday, was it Ladies' Day?
It was Ladies' Day.
It was Ladies' Day, that clears it up for me. Okay, then let's move on to our second game from Saturday, which was also in the Breedon Highland League. It was Buckie Thistle against Banks of Dee. Alright then, a tighter game, that one, but Liam Jules' goal from the penalty spot, ultimately the difference, a 6 in 4 games for him.
Aye, he's come in and made a big impact, and I found it quite interesting. I was speaking to him on Wednesday night after the Banks of Dee won at Formartine in the Aberdeenshire Cup, and he'd scored a hat-trick, and he said that his previous clubs he's usually been played as a sort of winger, so he wasn't really used to scoring as many goals as he has, but certainly putting him right through the middle's been an inspired move for Banks of Dee so far, and he's come up trumps for them. I think in terms of the game on Saturday, offside decisions or not have quite a big bearing on the contest. I mean, Buckie have won in the first half with Marcus Goodall, where he's onside and because I hopefully we'll be able to show you the freeze frame, but I've frozen it. He's onside and he was going through, the flag's gone up, and he was through on goal, and after the flag goes up, as you pointed out off camera, he was actually tripped as well, so could have had all manner of things or decisions having to be made there. And then in the second half, again, our angle for the build up to Banks's goal isn't perfect, but with Liam Jewell and it's Ryan Fife, I think, number 16, it's very, very tight in terms of the offside, and Ken Buckie were aggrieved and felt he was offside, but we don't have the perfect angle, so there's two there where the Jags are unhappy with. I would also say with the penalty, I think the actual penalty in terms of the foul, I'm not quite sure what Mark Ridgers was trying to do, because I know coming out to narrow the angle, but he sort of went to tackle and then pulled out, but it's like Liam Jewell's sort of running the ball out of play almost, so he's basically wants contact, desperate for contact, and I feel like Mark Ridgers has probably given him an opportunity to get contact there and win a penalty when he didn't need to, because I think it is, there's no question, I think it's a foul, but I just felt like if Buckie are looking at that back, the contact was probably unnecessary.
Where do we feel the respective sides are at now? Buckie Thistle losing, Bankside another win.
Bankside have got work to do, I think, but not as much as Buckie actually. Buckie, I don't see Buckie being challengers this year, the way things are looking at the minute.
15 points off the top with a game in hand just now.
It's a big gap against teams in Brora and Brechin who don't seem to be dropping just an awful lot of points at all. In terms of Bankside, I think they've got a big week ahead. It was a big result for them to go to Victoria Park and get all 3 points, but they now need to build on that with a huge game in midweek when they play Brechin, who are top of the table and I think 4 points clear now. So yeah, it's a huge one. I think that game on Wednesday kind of shapes what Bankside have realistically got to play for in terms of the league this year. Because I think if Brechin manage to get a win, then that's really going to put them firmly in the driving seat in terms of the chasing pack, other than Brora.
Aye, well, Bankside are 8 points behind Brechin just now, having played the same number of games. And I mean, it's still early in the season, but and a lot can change. But I would agree with you that it feels like Bankside, whether it's a win or a draw, they feel like they need something out of that, because you don't want the gap growing. With Buckie, I think it's like they're not actually. You might look at where they are in results and think they've been playing badly, but they're not actually playing badly. Like, not to dwell on it, but it's like on Saturday you can talk about marginal calls either way, and then they've maybe given up a goal again that they'll be disappointed with, and that's just happened in 3 or 4 games this season, where there's maybe been little things that have gone against them or little mistakes, and they've been punished for them, and that's the sort of ruthless nature of the league at times. And I think the thing is as well, in terms of teams, maybe whether it's Buckie or other teams that are a wee bit off the pace compared with Brechin and Brora, I think it's probably harder this year to put a sustained run together, because if you see some of the results we've had already this season, it might be classed as shocks. There's so many I think every team now is capable of taking points off everyone else, so it's like to put like a really good run of form together, I think it's harder than it's ever been before, which if you're chasing maybe the top 2 or 3, it's then harder to probably do that as well.
Okay, well, Brechin City have been mentioned a few times there, and that's where we'll start in terms of rounding up the rest of the league action from Saturday. Brechin won 1-0 at home to Wick Academy. Scott Logan kept up Brechin's unbeaten start, but it was 1-0, but it sounded like a comfortable 1-0 for Brechin. Do you agree?
Not entirely, because I don't think any 1-0's ever entirely comfortable, because all it takes is one mistake and then you can be back in it. I think Patrick Craig would have liked it to have been more comfortable. They've had a penalty which Dale Robertson's hit the crossbar with, and they've had most of the pressure, but I don't think it was necessarily totally comfortable, and I don't think that Brechin were probably at their best either, but the main thing for them is they got the 3 points, that's all that matters. Kept another clean sheet, which is always good. I think for Wick, I mean, Gary Manson, how things played out overall, was pretty happy. His only gripe was that when the Scorries did have chances to maybe counter-attack and cause problems, they didn't make the most of those maybe opportunities on the break.
I think it'll be a hugely satisfying result for Patrick Craig, because he's looking at Saturday and Brora in Cup action. It's an opportunity to go and stretch clear at the top, and you're grinding it out, and you have to do that some weekends. We're heading into the slightly chillier months. We know that pitches will start getting a little bit heavier. It'll be a little bit harder going for all the teams. So anytime you can pick up 3 points on a Saturday just now is a good day's work.
Formartine United won, Inverurie Locos won. Interesting reading about this game. Early in the second half, Cole Anderson booked after going down in the box for Locos in pursuit of a penalty. Unclear if that was a justified yellow card, but in the aftermath of the incident, Matthew McLean of Formartine was sent off, his second red card of the season, I believe. Do we know any more about what actually happened there, why Matthew McLean was sent off? Was it a dive from Cole Anderson? Have we seen any footage yet?
I haven't seen any footage of that. I've seen the goals, but I haven't seen any footage of that whole incident. But I assume there must have been some kind of retaliation or something said out of turn that referee Owen Lawrence took umbrage with before he got sent off. But I don't know. Answers on a postcard, really. But
Anderson ultimately scored what proved to be the opener for Locos. 78 minutes, but it sounded like a bit of hesitancy later in the game, even though, Locos had taken the lead with 12 minutes to go. It sounded like a bit of hesitancy from Zach Ellis in the Locos goal, then allowed Julian Wade to tee up Paul Campbell for an equaliser.
In fairness, we'll show you the goals on screen just now. I think the back pass didn't do Zach Ellis any favours, but I think from what I've heard over and read over the balance of play, I think it was quite even. A point was maybe about right, but I think Formartine would be the happier of the two taking a point, given that they lost. I think it was midway through the second half, they lost Matthew McLean, and then they fell behind, and Stuart Anderson said after, when that sort of happened, it would have been easy to crumble, but they didn't. And okay, that's the thing where I think Inverurie will be disappointed as well, as the goal they lose is preventable. But Formartine, to their credit, battled and picked up something, and I think for Paul Campbell especially, to get a goal probably do him the world of good, because he's been working hard and doing the right things, and he's been, so far this season, he's had no rewards in terms of goals, which isn't like Paul. So I think probably for him getting that goal on Saturday, you'll see him scoring a few more in the weeks ahead as well.
Forest Mechanics 2, Fraserburgh 2 now. Forest were ahead 2-0 at half-time in this one. New signing Jordan Along.
Along.
And a strike from Kyle McLeod that had the Can-Cans in control, but headed goals from Keaton Simpson and Scott Barber after the break squared the match. It sounded like Fraserburgh had a reasonably youthful side, so to show that character to come back, pretty admirable.
It was, and I think in the second half, I think it was Fraserburgh that were doing most of the pushing, trying to win it, and Forest had a few new faces. They'd Jordan Along, who scored, Charlie McDonald also come in for Rothes, and Cameron Neville he's somebody that's been in America, was with Clach when he was younger, and they also had Logan Ross, who feels like he's played for about 4 different teams on an emergency loan already this season. He was in goal and got man of the match, which would maybe suggest in the second half he was kept quite busy. But I think for Forest, first of all, it's like, a decent point. I don't think you'd complain about that. But having been 2-0 up, even though they were against a win second half in the onslaught, they might have hoped to hold out. Like, they lost the first goal, I think, was 3 minutes into the second half, and I think probably Stephen McDonald's message at half time is try and keep it at 2-0 and manage the lead as long as possible, because you might frustrate Fraserburgh, but then when they get that early goal, they get the lift and they have the momentum. But I think with the Broch as well, and giving credit to them, it's like the list of players they've got missing at the moment. It's like Andy Reid, Jamie Beagrie, Greg Buchan, Brian Hay, Ross Aitken, Lewis Davidson, Logan Watt, and then Aidan Suppel and Sean Butcher were only fit enough for the bench, able to play a wee part. So when you've got all those players missing, it's probably not the worst result. And some of their young players, I mean, Flynn Mackay's one that I've heard a lot of very good things about, and there are others there as well that have probably come in and shown up really well for the Broch. But despite all that, given that they're used to winning and being used to challenging, there's probably still a frustration at not managing to come back and get the 3 points.
Deveronvale won, Rothes won's the final league game to talk about. Sounded like Deveronvale had a few chances before Thomas Brady opened the scoring for Rothes. Jack Mitchell got Vale level, but then Rudy Duncan denied very late on by a save. Could have given Rothes all 3 points, but spoils shared.
Aye, I think for Deveronvale, in terms of the progress they would hope to make and everything else, like, this is the kind of game that will frustrate them, because I think that they hit the woodwork 3 times. They had a lot of pressure. I think they created more chances, and then they've come back and got a point, so fair play to them. But that's the sort of game they would feel, I think, on the balance, they should be winning and haven't won it. So that'll be a slight kick in the teeth for them. But I suppose the positive for the Bamfors is they didn't lose it either. They showed a bit of resilience to come back. For Rothes, again, you're on about new faces. They had a host involved, Thomas Brady, and Taylor Thane went the other way for Forrest, and Martin McKinnon, goalie, was on the bench, come in for Clach, and Shane Harkness back there for another spell, having been there before he started. And for them, after 5 games without a win, picking up a point and sort of weathering the Deveronvale storm are probably the positives to take out of it. And also, Thomas Brady scoring on his debut as well is another positive, clearly.
Okay, 2 preliminary round matches in the R.
Davidson Bankery.
R. Davidson Bankery, the new sponsors of the Highland League Cup. Going forward, Brora 2, Turriff 1 was the first result. Max Ewan with an early goal for Brora, wasn't it? And then they passed up the opportunity to extend their lead.
Then the fun started.
Aye, this is a game.
You're not teeing this up properly.
So many ebbs and flows to this game. Like, Brora started really well the first 20 minutes, created a lot of chances, got in front, penalty which Lee Herbert saved for Tony Dingwall, and then after that, so after 20 minutes or so, Turriff sort of came into the game, had some chances themselves, eventually equalised in the second half. And I have to be honest, how that equaliser stands, I'm not really sure, because we'll have it on screen, but Colin Williamson's sort of got his body in front of John Allen. It looks, to me, in my opinion's not got to change, that Colin Williamson's heels are clipped. John Allen, if it almost sort of stops running, because I think expecting the whistle to go, the referee Darren Munro doesn't blow his whistle, John Allen scores, goal stands, and then it's all in the melting pot again. Brora have ended up coming back and winning it through George Robiston, and I've seen a still, and there's a fair suspicion of offside about that, about George Robiston's running behind, which led to the goal. So if
it was all happening.
It was all happening, rightly or wrongly. There was maybe those decisions that on another day would go the other way. They've maybe cancelled each other out. But I think one thing Warren Cummins said as well afterwards, which was interesting, was that even though the winning goal perhaps was offside, he felt his players, as they were coming back, could have still have dealt with the situation better. And then another side of it, Stephen Mackay for Brora, I think he would have liked clearly the game to have been put to bed sooner with how they started, but to get through in the cup and find a way to win after sort of being pegged back, and that's very pleasing stuff for Brora. And whether it's League Cup, North of Scotland Cup, Brora are ticking along very nicely still, just that one defeat.
Keith next for them?
Keith in the next round, which unfinished business, I think, was the suggestion from the Brora camp as well after the league loss.
Strathspey Thistle, Clachnacuddin 0, Clachnacuddin 3, the final game to discuss this week. This one, I hesitate to use the word again, but sounded comprehensive. Jack Davison opening the scoring for Clach. Connor Bunt's double. He's been given the target of 20 goals this season by his manager. It did sound comfortable from reading the match report.
I think for Strathspey, Ryan Essen in general play was reasonably happy, but he felt in their defensive third and also the attacking third, he felt Clach were more effective than his side in terms of that. Like, I can understand, like, they're just dealt with things defensively, and then on the other side of it, Connor Bunce has scored. They've taken their chances. I mean, the first two goals are sort of presented to them a wee bit, but Jack Davis and Connor Bunce take them well, and then the third one's a really good strike for Connor Bunce, and that's taken him up to 7 goals for the season, and he'll maybe reach that target that his manager's laying down for him. But I think for Clach, it's like they've been going along in this good vein of form this season, and getting through in the cup's another good result for them. Buckie away next in the first round, so it doesn't really get any easier, but that'll be a good tie actually on the day as well, given the game last week between the sides was quite decent. But for Strathspey, I think Ryan Essen's tearing his hair out a wee bit at some of the goals they're conceding, and just thinks they need to make it harder for teams. But on the positive note for him, he has managed to sign a couple of players. Paul Brindle, who's been in there as a trialist, has signed, and I mean, good forward player to have. Been at Brora twice, Clach twice, Forest, scored a lot of goals at the level. And then somebody that most of us up here probably weren't aware of, but they've also signed Philip Franchak on loan for right back, that Ryan had seen at St Johnstone and things in the past and liked the look of. He's joined on loan, and hopefully he'll maybe be able to help them tighten up a bit at the back.
When you said Ryan Essen was tearing his hair out, I did have a sort of momentary is Ryan Essen not bald? But I think he just had a skinhead when he was at Aberdeen. I think that's what it was. Okay, we maybe should have done this earlier, but here are the latest Breedon Highland League standings after the weekend's results. Okay then, that's all of the weekend's results across the Breedon Highland League and the R. Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup discussed. As mentioned earlier, if you'd also like to watch highlights of 2 games, and this week it was Lossiemouth against Nairn County and Buckie Thistle against Banks of D, you can watch the main Highland League Weekly Monday show over on the Press and Journal website. You can subscribe at the moment for the low price, getting our sport pack for just £1 for your first 3 months. So head over there to do that. If you'd prefer, the next time we see you on YouTube will be next week, where we'll have analysis again of all the coming weekends goings on. So if you prefer watching and consuming your Highland League content that way, just look out for that. In the meantime, you can sign up to our Highland League newsletters from the Press and Journal below this video, and that'll get all the latest Highland League content directly into your email inbox, which includes our Highland League Weekly stuff. We're also on social media as well as YouTube. We've got an X channel. We've also got a Facebook group, so please get involved with those. Till we see you next though, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.